Hey, Magic fans, welcome back. This is your captain speaking here on Capnclydes MTG. And guess what? There's no news but the news. That makes any damn. I don't know what I'm saying. It's late, I'm tired, and highly caffeinated, so we'll see where this goes. But what we're going to do today is we're going to look at some of the foundation cards that are coming out. Foundations is going to be a legal set for 3+ years inside of Standard. So let's look at foundations as a whole for every color and find out what decks foundations is going to basically, I guess you could say, solidify as possible archetypes throughout its entire 3 years. Now, mind you, as other colors and expansions come into play, this may change, but foundations is exactly that, the foundation. So don't forget, comment, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. The comments down below will feed that YouTube algorithm. Also, don't forget, it is giveaway time. Links into the description. We'll be doing the giveaway at the end of the month. It's free. All you gotta do is log into the channel and go through the things. Go to the link in the description. Watch a couple videos, and yeah, there you go. So. Also in the description, don't forget links to the TCG and eBay store to help support the channel. So, without further ado, let's take a look at some mean green. That's right. So, we're going to start off foundations with the color green. So, very first card that I think is going to be heavily played in the foundations format all 3 years is Scavenging Ooze. This card, by far, has been a powerhouse and a staple throughout several formats inside of Standard. It has seen a little bit of a drop off in the older formats just because of better things, more options and more, we'll say, versatility. But Standard is always looking for good ways to deal with graveyard shenanigans, and there is nothing better than a Scavenging Ooze to eat your opponent's graveyard away while punching them in the face. So, if you guys haven't been around last time Scavenging Ooze was played, when someone targets something in a graveyard for 1 green, you can literally snap that card out from underneath the targeting effect. Or you can do it in advance. And it says here, if a creature was exiled, put a +1/+1 counter on it. So, exiling creatures makes this thing bigger, and makes it bigger, which means you kill your opponent faster. But you can also exile anything. So, whatever shenanigans they're pulling, whether it be trying to flash back an instant sorcery, dig a land out of the graveyard, whatever it is, the ooze can stop it. And they're not legendary. You can have multiple on the board. This has always been a Standard staple, and I believe moving forward, it will also be a staple no matter what's going on if you're playing green. Because, to be fair, there's a lot of graveyard shenanigans just inside of this set, so if you're not playing an ooze, you better be playing something that deals with graveyard, because if not, you're going to get reanimated into oblivion. So, other cards in mean green is none other than elves. That's right. Elves is a typical creature archetype in all the formats that people like to play. They can be very powerful and have powerhouse effects. Inside of Standard, there are several elves that makes the deck almost playable just by itself inside Foundations, let alone any elves that may have good abilities outside of Foundations that are in print now or yet to be printed. So with that being said, just to give a call out to what some of these decks that are full of elves can do, again, focusing only on the foundation cards. We have the Elvish Regrower. Not the best thing. 4 mana is a bit high, but as a 4/3, it's a good top out because most elves make mana. And you get to put permanents from your graveyard back to your hand. And as I go over more elf cards, you'll see why that's important. This is not as good as the 3 mana 3/2 that does it, but for an extra mana, you get an extra toughness. And to be fair, if we had our 3 mana 3/2 return a card from the graveyard to your hand, that's probably a bit much for Standard. Let's not lie. So I think this is probably a good compromise. So we'll just leave it at that. Other powerful elves in the set, obviously, Land of War elves, the OG elf, 1 green, 1/1 that taps for mana, which turns your turn 1 play into a I cast things for 3 on turn 2, which then quickly spirals out of control if you have more elves or mana production or God knows what else you got going on. Yeah, this will be the cornerstone of every green deck. Unless for some reason you're playing blue, maybe. I don't know. But even then, depending on what you're doing, mana ramp and elves are just always good. I mean, they don't say kill the elf on turn 1 every time you see an elf for no reason. They greatly get out of hand very quick. It's one way to swing the mana tempo back into your favor to cast your bigger, better spells before your opponent. Other elves in the format of Foundation, the Dwinnen's Elite. Green and 1 for a 2/2. When it comes in, you make another 1/1 elf. You have to control another elf, but again, if you're playing the elf deck, you will probably have a Land of War elf on turn 1, which means on turn 2, you can play another Land of War elf, then play this, and now all of a sudden you have 5 power on the battlefield, and enough mana for 5 on the next turn. And some people may be like, well, this doesn't tap for mana, Captain. It can't be that good. Well, when you put this in a combination with other cards that play off of elves, it is very good. Getting 2 elves for the price of 2 mana, a 1/1 and a 2/2, that's 3 power for 2, plus getting 2 elves matters. And I'm going to tell you why. And remember, you can play 4 of these. And the reason why will come up shortly, but you also have Reclamation Sage in the mix. This has been a multi-format card for, I cannot tell you how long. I mean, even Modern, this was seeing play, even at 3 mana, just a 2/1 that lets you disenchant something is just absurd. The ability to destroy your opponent's best enchantment or artifact or whatever and have a 2/1 is insane. The fact that it's an elf and plays off of all the elf mechanics makes it that much better inside an elf deck. So, again, non-legendary can be very powerful. And all that said, the most powerful creature probably to usher in these elf decks in Standard will be the Elvish Archdruid. Yes, it's 3 mana, but remember, a Land of War elf on turn 1 makes this on turn 2. It's a 2/2. It turns your Land of Wars into 1/1. But the big thing is add 1 green for each elf you control. So if you play this on turn 2 and you already have a Land of War elf, which is what makes you do that, on the next turn, you lay Dwinnen's Elite. You make 2 elves. That gives you 4 elves in play. You can tap this for 4 mana, and you haven't even laid the land yet. So you can get 5 mana on turn 3, which can be very devastating depending on the kind of deck you're playing. Now, mind you, it's going to take most of the cards in your hand, and it's almost like a combo. But again, if you don't even have anything to play with it, on turn 3, you're going to have a 2/2, a Land of War Elf 2/2, a 3/3 Elite, and a 2/2 token. And when you're playing things like Overrun, that normally means your opponent dies on the next turn when you cast Overrun by just tapping the Archdruid and swing with a bunch of 5/5s and 6/6s. So yeah, keep that in mind. Other than Overrun, we have other things that pay off in Elves decks. But here's another green creature outside of Elves that is going to be huge for the format, and that's Loot. Why is that? Well, a green and 2 for a 1/4 is not the most spicy thing in the world, but you play additional land on each of your turns, pretty much is. Plus, the ability for 2 green and 4 colorless to look at top 6 cards of your library, reveal a creature card, mana value less than or equal to the number of lands you control from among them, and put it onto the battlefield, put the rest in the bottom random order, is powerful. If you get this out on turn 2 with Land of War Elf, for example, you then go to 3 land, and once you have elves, In an elf deck, most elves are 3 or less, and activating this for 6 is very easy when you have archdruids or land war elves or what have you floating around, which can make elf decks, or any other deck in that matter, if you can get it out, very, very powerful. So, with that said, we have Lathril, Blade of the Elves. If you're gonna go non-mono green, you have this to also rely on. There's lots of black green elves. This one in particular is rather good. It's a 2/3 for a black, green, and 2. You may be thinking, well, 4 mana doesn't seem very good. Well, guess what? You're playing elves. You're gonna have 4 mana on turn 3 at the probably latest, to be honest. But a 2/3 menace that says whenever he deals damage to a player, create that many 1/1 green elf warrior tokens. We just talked about Archdruid that makes them all 2/2s. And then if you hit them with this, now your Archdruid makes 2 extra green mana, and now it's getting out of control. Also, if you hit somebody with this, you can tap him and tap 10 untapped elves. That includes him. Your opponent just flat loses 10 life and you gain 10. When your elves can't get through, that's fine. Just keep making them. When you have 10, you can just start hamstringing your opponent by kicking him in the crotch constantly. And then at the end of the day, with things like the Elfsworn Giant on the big mana side of payoffs, if you get to 5 mana, you can play this. And then every land makes you an elf, which also feeds the elf token theme. It's not the best thing in the world and probably won't see play. But hell, in Standard, you never know. 5 mana, 5/3 is not terrible. And there are fetch lands in Standard so you can make 2 elves a turn if that's the road you're going. Just saying. Not to mention at 5 mana and 6, we have other big payoffs. We have Vivian Reed reprint, the 5 mana planeswalker for 5 loyalty that look at the top 4 cards of your library, reveal a creature or land from among them, put it into your hand, the rest on the bottom random order. -3, destroy enchantment, artifact, or creature with flying. That was really big and will be big again in Standard. And obviously, it comes with a built-in mini overrun with Vigilance, Trample, Indestructible, bowling +2/+2 for -8. Lots of versatility, easily played, and with the new Quilled Great Worm, the 6 mana 7/7 Trampler, that whenever a creature you control does combat damage during your turn, put that many +1/+1 counters on it. You may cast this from the graveyard by removing 6 counters from among creatures you control. If you do have 5 or 6, say, 2/2 elves, but your opponent's got 3 blockers, it would wipe your whole battlefield. If you lay the worm first by tapping your Archdruid, and that's it. If you swing in and half your elves get killed, but the other half hit, now they're all 4/4s, it gets out of hand quick, because then the worm starts swinging. So, lots of big payoffs cards for elf decks in mean green. There's black-green versions. There's going to be mono-green versions. And with all the new stuff coming out, I think we're going to see an abundance of elf decks in Standard. So, with all that said, guys, thanks a lot for watching. Until next time, be kind. And as always, I hope to see you across from the game table.